Have you ever saved up your money to buy the newest and latest and greatest computer, only to open it up and realize this is the same as the last one? This is why I sold the 2018 MacBook Pro. Before I begin, I want to talk about why I like MacBook Pro so much. It's great to have Mac OS in a small form factor that I can literally edit a video on anywhere. Literally anywhere. And I like Mac OS. I prefer to use Mac OS, even though I do use Premiere. I know it would probably make more sense to use Windows. I just prefer Mac OS, and I like the operating system more. I've used it more. I'm more comfortable with it. And I'm fine using Windows. I just prefer to use Mac OS. But these are the reasons why I decided to sell the MacBook Pro 2018. The biggest one, I think, is going to be the pricing of it. I was able to purchase this for $1,300. I would say typically this is around a $1,600 to $1,700 laptop. The 15-inch 2018 MacBook Pro. Base spec. It's got the i7 8750H Radeon 555X, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and 256 gigabytes of SSD storage. So it's a very powerful laptop, 6-core processor. It's awesome. I mean, it's one of the best MacBook Pros Apple has ever made. Obviously, it's worth more than what I paid for it, but having paid even $1,300 for it, it's really hard for me to swallow that cost. I could purchase a 2014 15-inch MacBook Pro, in fact I have, for about $650, and that is half of the price that I paid for it, and way more than half the price that MacBook Pro is worth. And it's not nearly half as powerful. It's way more than half as powerful, so I'm paying this huge premium for very minimal performance gains. Obviously, multi-core performance is way better on the 2018 MacBook Pro, but single-core performance, they actually pair up pretty closely. The GPU doesn't really matter to me because I rarely do too much GPU intensive video editing. Most everything I do is solely based on how powerful the CPU is. So a 2014 MacBook Pro is still plenty for me, especially hooked up to an eGPU when I'm sitting at my desk doing extremely hard edits on a more difficult project. But I'm able to still edit my 4K videos on the MacBook Pro 2014 on Premiere Pro when I'm just sitting on the couch. Regarding performance, I do want to talk about how overkill this laptop is for 99.999% of people. I think one of the most important things, especially what I've learned over my lifetime, is to just know exactly what you need. Most people think that they need a more powerful computer than they actually do. If you're just doing very basic tasks like word processing and answering emails, the last thing you need is a 6-core processor. I think 4 cores is pretty good because I think most people, especially when buying a MacBook Pro, are probably considering doing some type of creative task like maybe editing the occasional movie for their family or editing a photo or something. And so I would assume that that's why you would pay the premium for Mac OS. I think that's why most people do, because they perceive Macs as better creative computers than Windows. That's not necessarily true, but I think that's why a lot of people purchase them. So you'd be way better served even just buying a 13-inch 2013 MacBook Pro that only has 2 cores. That's more than enough for what most people need a computer for. Ports, and I'm somebody who doesn't really mind the dongle, but it's frustrating to have to remember the dongle. I was shooting some B-roll with my fiance while we were out, and I wanted to watch what I was shooting from the camera on a bigger screen, and all I had was a 2018 MacBook Pro, and I forgot the dongle. That's a pain in the butt. I'm not going to say I was wrong, because I do believe that having a dongle isn't a big deal if you can just get used to bringing it, but it's an extra step, and it's just frustrating. I wish Apple would have implemented some type of way to maybe add more ports to it, like an option to add more ports, or at least an SD card slot. At least that's all I really want, is an SD card slot. Everything else I can get used to, but the SD card slot's really frustrating to me. It's a super thin port, the SD card slot is, so I don't know why they couldn't just put it on the right-hand side of the computer. But I digress. The touch bar, it has like 2 or 3 cool functional things that is added into it and is built into it, but it slows me down. I have to constantly look down and see exactly what I'm clicking before I can actually click the button, as opposed to the 2014 MacBook Pro that just uses the actual function keys up top. I don't think the touch bar is going anywhere. This isn't really a huge reason, but this is just something I kind of found frustrating. And I did notice it got extremely hot when I was using the computer while editing. I think that the touch bar adds more heat to this computer as well. I'm just not a huge fan of the touch bar, I guess is what I'm saying. But I just think they should have not stuck with this. I understand that they're going to, and it does have some added functionality if you can just get used to it. but I guess maybe I'm just an ape and I don't like getting used to stuff. The keyboard, I actually really enjoyed typing on that keyboard. I had no problems with it. I switched back to the 2014 MacBook Pro and I like that keyboard as well. I don't really have a problem using the 2018 MacBook Pro keyboard or the new butterfly switches, or I guess the old butterfly switches, because I heard now that they're making new ones. But I think that the concerns with that keyboard just really worry me. If I was editing a video and I just needed to get something done and I didn't have a spare, I don't know, if I didn't have a spare keyboard around with me, it's a MacBook Pro, so I should be able to take it everywhere. So I'm not carrying a spare keyboard with me, but having the 2018 MacBook Pro makes me want to carry a spare keyboard, and that starts to really diminish the benefits of having a thinner, lighter, more powerful notebook computer, not a desktop computer. So I didn't have a problem with the keyboard. It was fine for when I used it, literally no problems at all, but I think that in the future, if I were to have a problem, I think I would be very frustrated with it, especially considering the fact that, yeah, they'll fix it up to the next 4 years, but the 2014 MacBook Pro is 5 years old now, so the 2014 MacBook Pro is totally usable, and I imagine the 2018 MacBook Pro in 2022 and 2023 will be totally usable, and the fact that at that point, after 4 years, Apple says, no, we're not going to support it any longer, that seems silly, so I would rather buy a computer that I know will just work as opposed to buying a computer that may not work in 4 years and may not be supported. Those are my reasons for selling the MacBook Pro 2018. It's a great computer, really powerful. If you have one, I hope you like it, hope you enjoy it. But if you are thinking about buying one of the newer models of the 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 MacBook Pros, do know that most of the time, especially the 2018 and 2019, those CPUs are going to be overkill for you, especially even for somebody who edits 4K videos. It wasn't overkill for what I do. It was actually pretty nice having that. But I didn't really see a huge performance gain when I was using those, I guess. When rendering out videos and exporting them, it did take a little bit less time, but that's about it. So just know what you need, decide what you actually need in the computer, and definitely test some out. It's not a bad idea to purchase a 2013 13-inch MacBook Pro and see if that works for you. And if that's not powerful enough and the computer seems to be lagging, well then upgrade to a 15-inch MacBook Pro. That way you know that you need that extra 2 cores and that extra graphical performance inside of a 15-inch MacBook Pro that the 13-inch just doesn't have. So that's what I would consider doing. Look locally, buy a computer for a price that you know you could sell it at if you wanted to sell it like a week or two later. And that way you're not really losing any money by testing out the computer, and you know that you're getting the computer that you need. Thank you again for watching the video. I'm Scott with Techno Eclipse. If you want to help keep this channel sponsorship free, do check out the Patreon in the description down below. I'm going to do this without sponsorships, I hope. Obviously, the less people that help on Patreon, the more I'll probably have to rely on a company to pay for this whole content structure. I really don't want to have to do that. Obviously, I made a video about it. So I'll see you guys in the comment section. I hope I didn't feel like I was forcing you too much. If you can't afford it, don't. Obviously, I'm not forcing you to buy the Patreon or spend money on the Patreon, but just know that that is the reason I don't have a sponsor on this channel. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.